Okay, so for today's lesson, I broke up the problem into different steps, and it actually kind of covers the CFS. So I broke down the CFS into the problem itself. So the first thing in the CFS says determine the initial horizontal and vertical lengths. This rectangle that you have is the initial image. So it says consider the rectangle below. How many units is the horizontal length? Now, what I did was I just quickly wrote down my rectangle. I drew out 12 units, 5 units, and just a throwback, horizontal means side to side. So the horizontal length is 12 units. Vertical length, which is up and down, how long it is, would be 5 units. So here, how many units is the horizontal length? We're going to say 12 units because, again, that's side to side. How many units is the vertical length, which is up and down, and we're going to say 5 units. Next, it says, what is 120% as a decimal? So just as a reminder, if I have 120%, what that means is you have 120 out of 100, because percent means always out of 100. If you divide 120 by 100, what you would get, and some of you can do this in your head, but I know all of you, if you need now, can use your calculators at this point. So 120 divided by 100, that's going to give me 1.2. And so 120% as a decimal is 1.2. So we're going to put not 0.12, it's 1.2. That's what you're going to click. Next, what is 30% as a decimal? Again, 30% is the same as 30 out of 100. And if I divide 30 with 100, we know you would get 30 hundredths. So 30% as a decimal is 0.30, not 3. Okay. So now we get to the actual problem, which is, what are the final dimensions of the rectangle after applying a horizontal scale factor of 120%? What this means is you are only looking at the horizontal side, and you are seeing, well, okay, if my horizontal scale factor is 120%, what would be the new scale factor? So if it's 120%, that means that this is going to get bigger and not smaller. So I could go ahead and cross out 1.5 because I know that because I have a scale factor that is greater than 100, this is going to increase and get larger. So now I'm going to figure out, well, what would be 120% of 12? Which means what you're going to do is you're going to multiply. If I have 120, if I have, this is 12 units, so 12 units. And I want to know, well, what is 120% of 12? I'm going to multiply it by 1.2. And so this would give me 2 times 2 is 4, 1 times 2 is 2, 2 times 1 is 2, and 1 times 1 is 1. And then we add them, and you get 144, but I have one number behind the decimal, so that's 14.4 units, which makes sense because if my scale factor again is 120, that means that it's getting bigger, and obviously it wouldn't make sense if it's 1,440 units. Okay, last one. It says, what are the final dimensions of the rectangle after applying a vertical scale factor of 30%? Vertical scale factor means you are only looking at the vertical side of the rectangle, not the horizontal side. The vertical side is 5 units. And my scale factor is 30%. That means that my vertical length is going to get smaller because of my scale factor. So I want to figure out, well, what is 30% of 5? And so what I'm going to do here, I know that my vertical scale factor is 5 units. And so here, what we're going to do is, if it's 5 units, I'm going to multiply it by 0.30 because it's 30%, and we could actually just do this as 0.3. 0.30 is the same as 0.3. So 5 times 3 is 15, one number behind the decimal, and it's 1.5 units. So all you're really doing is multiplying the scale factor with each length. So I multiplied 12 by 120%, which is 1.2, and then I multiplied 5 by 30%, which gave me 1.5. And you're going to click 1.5 units.